Shadows over Earth the stars had grown dangerous. From orbit, Earth looked peaceful white clouds rolling over blue oceans, continents glowing faintly in the night. But beyond the soft light of the moon, something stirred. Shadows moved among the constellations. A fleet, cold, unforgiving, the Galactic Empire had arrived. Their message was short: submit to imperial rule, or be erased. The words had spread across every screen on Earth, every language. Every voice carried the same ultimatum. Panic spread like wildfire. Nations argued, armies mobilized. Civilians filled shelters, praying to gods old and new. But in the shadows of fear, one man moved with purpose: Elias Vey. Once he was a soldier. Special forces, scarred by battles, fought in places the world never learned about. He'd retired after losing his squad, living in silence, repairing engines in a forgotten town. But war had found him again, this time not in deserts or ruined cities, but from the stars themselves. And Elias knew something most didn't. The Empire hadn't simply discovered Earth. They had targeted it. And the reason was him. It had begun years earlier. When Elias was still active duty, he had been part of a classified program, Project Horizon, humanity's first experiment with alien technology. A crashed vessel, half buried in the sands of the Sahara, had gifted Earth a terrible secret, proof that they were not alone. Elias had touched that alien ship, walked inside its dark halls, and in doing so, he had met someone not of this world. Ka, Eoen. Ta, silver-skinned, eyes like shards of night sky. He wasn't human. He wasn't even from the same corner of the galaxy as the Empire. Kalen was a fugitive, a prisoner trapped when his ship fell through the void and slammed into Earth. And Elias had freed him. They had fought together once, against soldiers who wanted to dissect Kalen for parts. Elias had broken every order, every oath, to protect him. And Kalen had sworn something in return. If the Empire ever came for Earth, humanity would not face them alone. Now, years later, the promise trembled across the stars. The first wave of Empire ships darkened the night sky over major cities. Their hulls gleamed like obsidian, massive, silent, ominous. The air shivered with the hum of power. Governments tried to negotiate. They begged. They argued for peace. The Empire didn't listen. They wanted obedience, resources, soldiers, slaves, and they had already decided Earth's worth: a farm for bodies. Elias sat in a dim underground chamber, surrounded by flickering consoles salvaged from 100 nations' desperation. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers whispered frantic calculations. None of it would matter. Humanity's fleets were small, its weapons crude compared to what the Empire wielded. He slammed his hand against the table. They're not here for conquest. They're here for extinction, Elias growled, his voice raw. The same way they burned Kalen's people. They'll drain us, then leave Earth as ash. An older general leaned forward, sweat dripping down his temples. Then what do you suggest, Vey? We can't outgun them. We can't outrun them. Humanity doesn't have the means. Elias closed his eyes. He could still see Kellen's face the night he left Earth, vanishing in a burst of alien light. His voice had echoed in Elias' mind. When the stars turn against you, call my name. I will hear. And so Elias did, standing before a broken comes. RIG patched together from alien shards and human copper. He sent a message into the dark. One word. Ka, E-L-N. For a moment, nothing answered. Then the console shook. A light flared, brighter than the sun. The room filled with a voice not made by human throats. Elias Vey, you called. The others recoiled. Elias stood firm. You promised me, Elias said quietly. You said humanity wouldn't stand alone. And across the stars, something stirred. The Empire was not the only power in the galaxy dot, and as Earth prepared for war, the first flicker of hope trembled into being. But hope comes at a price. Asterisk the broken alliance. This light of Kellen's arrival still shimmered in the underground chamber. Dust hung in the air. The consoles hummed with alien static. And standing in the middle of it, towering over the frightened engineers and generals, was the being Elias had once called Brother K-E-L-E-N. But he was not as Elias remembered. His silver skin was darker now, scarred and cracked like cooled metal. His once proud armor was broken, patched with mismatched plates. And his eyes, those star-filled eyes, burned with something Elias had never seen in him before. Weariness dot behind Kalen stepped others. Dozens of them, men, women, children, all bearing the same silver sheen. Though many limped, many carried wounds that never healed properly, and many looked at the humans with open distrust. Survivors. Refugees. Kalen spoke, his voice echoing, like thunder rolling through a canyon. Elias Ve. Humanity called, and so I came. But know this, my people are no longer warriors. We are shadows of what we once were. The Empire destroyed our worlds. We live because we ran. And if we fight, at your side, we may die to the last. Elias met his gaze. Then we die fighting. The words drew a murmur among the humans. Some were stirred, others horrified. The general slammed his fist on the table. This is madness. If what he says is true, then aligning with these survivors only paints a bigger target on our backs. Callan's eyes narrowed. The Empire does not need bigger targets. Earth was chosen long before I returned. They want your people for one reason only: your adaptability, your numbers. You are resource stock, not rivals. A cold silence fell. The truth was worse than conquest. Humanity wasn't considered an enemy. They were considered livestock. Elias leaned forward. And we proved them wrong. The days that followed were chaos dot in the bunkers and command centers beneath Earth cities. Debates raged. Humanity's leaders demanded to know why they should trust Kellen's people. Refugees, they called them. Broken, useless. But Elias knew better. He had seen Kalen fight. He had seen alien minds work in ways humans couldn't. And most of all, he knew that trust was their only chance. He argued before the council, his voice hoarse from shouting. You think we can fight alone? Our fleets are a joke compared to theirs. Our missiles barely scratch their armor. We need Kellen's knowledge, his people's technology, or we're dead before we leave the atmosphere. A minister sneered. And if this is a trap, if these aliens are spies, if they've lured the Empire to us deliberately? Elias slammed his hand against the table, so hard that cracks spread across its surface. I've bled for this man. I've buried brothers beside him. If he wanted Earth dead, it would already be ash. For a long moment, silence. Then Kalen spoke, voice quiet. My people know the Empire's cruelty. We know their tactics, their ships, their commanders. But if we join you, you must understand there is no turning back. The Empire will not forgive Earth for standing. Elias stared across the room into the eyes of every leader who doubted. Then let them come. In the days that followed, Kellen's people began working alongside human engineers. Their technology was crude, patched together from what they had salvaged during decades of running, but it was still beyond anything humanity had touched. Plasma conduits, shield harmonics, star maps showing hidden lanes through the void. For the first time, Earth's crude warships were refitted with alien designs. Steel hulls gained shimmering shields. Nuclear missiles were tipped with plasma warheads. And human pilots, reckless and fearless, learned to fly like no alien could Kalen watched in silence as Elias guided young recruits through the hangars. "You humans," he said softly, almost to himself. "You see broken metal, and you make it sing. Again. You see scraps, and you turn them into weapons. Perhaps this is why the Empire fears you." Elias gave a small, tired grin. "No, they don't fear us. Not yet." But far above Earth, the Empire was already moving. Their fleet hung in orbit, silent as gods. And when they spoke again, the message struck every living soul like a blade to the heart. "Children of Earth, you have been given mercy once. This is your final choice. Deliver your young to us for integration, and your world will be spared. Refuse, and we will cleanse this planet of every last breath." The words echoed across every radio, every every television. Parents screamed. Children cried. Soldiers clenched their fists in fury. The ultimatum was clear: surrender the future, or lose it entirely. In the chamber deep underground, Elias stood frozen as the words replayed on the monitors. The air was heavy with silence. Leaders wept openly. Kellen's jaw tightened. This is their way. They break you by demanding the unthinkable, force you to sacrifice what you cannot bear, so you destroy yourselves from within. It worked on my people. It works on every world they touch. Elias's hands trembled against the table. He could still hear the screams of his lost squad years ago, their voices echoing in his memory. He could not let Earth suffer the same fate. He turned, eyes blazing with fury. "Then we give the Empire our answer, not their kind." "Of ultimatum? What do you mean?" asked one of the generals. Elias's voice was low, steady, every word sharp as a blade. "I mean, we tell them this. If they touch one child, we will tear their empire apart." The words struck the room into silence. But outside, above the skies, the Empire's ships shifted. Their weapons warmed. The countdown to war had begun. Fire in the sky. Ultimatum burned through every corner of Earth. Some called for surrender. Some cried for defiance. And some froze, paralyzed between terror and hope. Elias knew the fracture would kill them faster than any orbital strike. For 3 days, leaders bickered in dark chambers. One faction of governments whispered surrender was the only way to survive. Better to give up their children than see the entire planet burned. Another faction spat curses, calling them cowards, demanding total resistance. Kalen stood silently through the arguments, watching the human leaders tear themselves apart. Finally, when the shouts reached a fever pitch, he slammed his spear, the last weapon of his people, into the floor. The sound echoed like a gunshot. "You think the Empire cares for your surrender?" he roared, eyes blazing. "You give them your children, and they will still take your land, your water, your very sky. They will strip your planet until only dust remains. That is their promise." The room fell silent. Elias rose, his face carved from stone. "Enough talk." They gave. "You's their deadline. If we keep waiting, there won't be an Earth left to argue over." He leaned forward, voice sharp. "We hit them first." Gasps filled the chamber. The general who once doubted him snapped. "You're insane. Our fleets are barely patched together. Against them? That's suicide." Elias's jaw clenched. Then maybe it's time the Empire learns what suicide looks like from the human side. On the 4th night, the Empire moved. Massive cruisers drifted into low orbit, blotting out the stars. Their hulls shimmered with void black metal, each bristling with cannons the size of skyscrapers. Cities below trembled as their shadows passed. The ultimatum timer reached 0, and as the world held its breath, Elias gave the order, launch. The first strike was chaos. Human warships, frigates built from steel in desperation roared. Out of hidden hangars, engines screaming blue fire. Their hulls were crude, patched with alien shield harmonics Kellen's engineers had barely tested. But inside, human pilots grinned like wolves. "This is it," one muttered, gripping his controls. "Let's show the galaxy what Earth means by fight." Dozens of missiles tore into the sky. Engines ignited. Trails of fire streaked upward like vengeful comets. The Empire laughed. Their shields flared, glowing faintly as the first wave of missiles struck and fizzled harmlessly. "Primitive toys," one Empire commander sneered aboard his cruiser. And them? But then the second wave hit. Not missiles. Ships, not tiny fighters, piloted by humans reckless enough to fly straight into death. They wove between plasma blasts, shields sparking, hulls tearing under the heat. And just when the Empire thought they had them cornered, the fighters did something no algorithm predicted. They rammed .1 fighter, plunged into an enemy cannon, its pilot screaming defiance as both exploded in fire. Another slid beneath the cruiser's belly and fired its entire payload point blank. Shredding armor in a burst of flame, the Empire reeled. Humans weren't fighting by rules. They weren't retreating when damaged. They weren't predictable. They were mad. Elias watched from the command center as explosions dotted the night sky. Every detonation was a life lost, but everyone also cracked the illusion of the Empire's invincibility. Kalen stood beside him, silent, eyes flicking across tactical readouts. At last he spoke. "They do not understand you. They have fought. Empires that obeyed, worlds that submitted, but humans. You bite even when broken." Elias's fists tightened. "That's the only way we've ever survived." The battle stretched into hours. Humanity's fleet was shredded, ship after ship consumed by plasma fire. But the Empire was bleeding too. Their blockade wavered. One cruiser lost power entirely and plummeted into the atmosphere, earning a trail across the night like a dying god. For the first time in centuries, the Empire tasted fear. And across the galaxy, in the hidden channels of conquered worlds, whispers spread. Earth fights back, but victory had a price. When the smoke cleared, only a fraction of humanity's fleet limped home. Families waited in shelters that never opened again. Fires burned across continents where debris had fallen. And in the ruins of a scorched city, Elias found the truth. The Empire had known their tactics. They had known their launch sites. They had been ready, which meant someone had told them. A traitor. In the command bunker, the council gathered again, their faces pale with exhaustion and grief. Elias slammed a blood-stained report onto the table. They were waiting for us. Every move, every formation, they knew it. Someone in this room is feeding the Empire information. Gasps, denials, curses. Kellen's hand tightened around his spear, eyes cold. Find them, or Earth will not survive the next strike. Elias scanned the room, rage burning behind his eyes. He didn't know who had betrayed them. But he knew one thing. The war had only just begun. The weight of betrayal. Smoke of battle still clung to Earth's skies when the whispers began. Someone had betrayed them. The word spread like fire through shelters, barracks, command rooms. Panic gnawed at morale. If the Empire knew their every move, then every plan was already a death sentence. Elias paced the underground command chamber, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. His uniform was torn, caked with ash and blood. He had buried too many pilots already, written too many names on lists no one should have to read. But he had no time to mourn. Somewhere among them was a knife, hidden in the dark, bleeding earth. Dry, Kalen leaned against the wall, silent as a statue. His scarred silver skin gleamed faintly in the dim light. When Elias finally spoke, his voice cracked with frustration. They're tearing themselves apart up there. Half the council wants to purge every suspected traitor. The other half wants to make peace before we lose everything. Kellen's star-dark eyes narrowed. Peace with the Empire is death. You know this. I know, Elias muttered. But try telling that to parents who just buried their children. Kalen studied him for a long time. Humans are not so. Different from my people. Fear blinds them. But if you break now, Earth falls. That night, Elias made his choice. No more debates. No more blind searching. He gathered a small team soldiers he trusted, Kalen at his side, and began digging. They traced comms logs, intercepted transmissions, tore apart encrypted channels until their eyes burned. And then they found it. A signature buried deep in. The Empire's network. A signal that pulsed from Earth itself, feeding information upward into the void. It wasn't just any officer. It was someone close. Her name was Commander Rin Halden. She had been Elias's ally for years, a tactician sharp. As a blade, the one who first pushed for unity when Earth's governments argued endlessly. She was respected, trusted. And she had sold them out. Elias confronted her in the shadows of a ruined hangar. Ash fell like snow through broken ceilings. Why, Rin? He asked, his voice hollow. After everything, why them? Her eyes flickered. With guilt, then hardened. Because we can't win, Elias. You've seen their power. You've seen what they do. We're clinging to hope like children clutching toys. The Empire offered me a choice cooperation in exchange for survival. Elias's. FI's TS clenched. Survival? By handing Earth to slavers? Her face twisted. Better slaves than ashes. Better children alive, even as thralls, than burned with their parents. Colin's spear pressed against her chest, his voice like thunder. You speak as though the Empire ever honors its bargains. They would use you, then erase you. Rin's jaw shook, but her eyes burned with defiance. Maybe, but at least some would live. The council demanded her execution. Some wanted it public, a spectacle to restore faith. Others wanted her imprisoned as a bargaining chip. Elias looked into her eyes last time and saw only someone who had already lost. He gave the order. The traitor was gone. But the damage she had done remained. With Rin's betrayal revealed, Kellen's people wavered. Many of the refugees pulled away from human camps, whispering that Earth could not be trusted. Some wanted to leave entirely, to vanish into the void again before the Empire crushed them alongside the humans. Elias stood before them, his voice raw. You think we're weak because one of us broke? Then you don't understand humanity yet. We're still here. We've been betrayed before by kings, by generals, by governments that sent us to die. But we endure. That's who we are. For a long moment, silence. Then one of Kellen's people, a woman with a missing arm, and fire in her eyes, stepped forward. My son died fighting their ships. I will not let his sacrifice mean nothing. I will fight. Others joined her. Slowly, the alliance began to heal. But even as trust mended, Elias uncovered something worse. In the wreckage of the fallen Empire cruiser, scavengers pulled shards of blackened data cores. Kalen and the human scientists worked together to decode them, their faces pale as the files revealed their contents. Blueprints. Not for a ship. Not for a weapon humanity had ever seen. It was something greater. A star killer. Empire had begun construction of a weapon designed not to bombard cities or scorch continents, but to erase entire planets. It fed on stars themselves, drawing energy from collapsed suns to fire blasts capable of annihilating worlds in a single strike. And the weapon already had a name, Oblivion Engine. Elias stared at the hologram, his blood running cold. There, not just coming for Earth, he whispered. They're building this to erase us entirely. Kellen's voice was grim. No, not just you. Every world that rises against them, they will make Earth the example. The room fell silent. The air itself seemed to grow heavier. Asterisk, the war was no longer about survival. It was about stopping the Empire before the galaxy itself burned. Elias gripped the table, his voice steady despite the dread clawing at his chest. Then we stop them, whatever it takes. Kalen looked at him, eyes shadowed with sorrow. Do you understand what that means? To strike at the Oblivion engine is to strike at the heart of the Empire. They will unleash everything. Not one ship, not a dozen entire legions. We may die before we even reach its hull. Elias met his gaze without flinching. Then we'll give them something worth remembering when they burn us. And as the news spread first among human soldiers, then among Kellen's refugees, then across encrypted channels to distant stars, a single truth took root. The war was no longer just Earth's fight. The galaxy itself was watching. Asterisk the empires. Fist the words Oblivion engine became a shadow across every plan, every breath, every sleepless night. Humanity could no longer think of survival alone. If the weapon was completed, Earth was doomed, and so was every free voice in the galaxy. Elias stood before the council. Maps of the stars projected across the dark chamber. The hologram of the Empire's fortress spun slowly, a monstrous ring of black metal orbiting a collapsed star. This is where it's being built, Elias said, pointing to the glowing construct. The Oblivion engine feeds on the star's core. It's weeks away from full power. Once it's ready, we'll never stop it. A general muttered, That fortress is impenetrable. We've thrown everything we have at their fleets, and barely scratched them. You're asking us to march into the jaws of hell. Elias slammed a fist on the table. If we don't, Earth won't have a hell left to march into. Kalen stepped forward. His voice was calm, steady, but his eyes were grim. Elias is right. The fortress is not a shield. It is a fist. When it closes, it will crush not just Earth, but every world with the courage to resist. The only chance you have is to strike it before it is complete. Silence hung heavy. Every leader in the chamber knew the truth. This mission was suicide. And yet, one by one, they nodded. The weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. Human engineers worked day and night, grafting alien plasma cannons onto steel warships not built to bear their weight. Refugee scientists taught humans how to weave shield harmonics into crude reactors, turning fragile ships into bruised but stubborn beasts. The hangars echoed with the sound of welding, hammers, and whispered prayers. Elias walked among the soldiers, listening, reassuring, reminding them why they fought. Many were barely more than boys and girls, their hands still trembling when they held rifles. Yet when their eyes met his, he saw the same fire, the fire that had carried humanity through plagues, wars, and darkness. Commander, one young pilot said, nervously tightening her flight suit. If we fall, does it even matter? Against that? Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. It matters because we choose to stand. If the Empire wants to erase us, let them bleed for every inch they take. Finally, the day came. The fleet gathered. In the void-patched frigates, stolen Empire corvettes, scavenged alien cruisers, all flying side by side. A ragged coalition. Humanity and Cullen's people, united by desperation. The sight stirred something deep in Elias's chest. Against all odds, they had become more than survivors. They were warriors. He turned to Kalen on the command deck. You ready for this? Kalen gave a small, grim smile. I was ready the day they burned my world. They launched. The fortress rose ahead, a black halo encircling a dying star. Its spires glowed with unnatural light, feeding on the star's heart. Even from a distance, the scale was staggering. It was less a station than a god-forged crown of destruction. The Empire was waiting. Legions of ships poured from the fortress, formations precise as blades, cruisers larger than mountains, swarms of drones like locusts. Their commander's voice rang across every come, cold and merciless. Earth-born vermin, you come to die in the cradle of your defiance. The battle began. Human ships charged, reckless and furious. Missiles tore through the dark. Kellen's fighters dove into enemy lines, shields flaring bright. Explosions lit the void like newborn stars. Elias barked orders, guiding the chaos. Human ingenuity shone ships feigning retreat, only to loop back and ram. Broken hulls turned into shrapnel bombs, fighters dragging drones into crossfire. But the Empire was overwhelming. Their formations tightened. One by one, human ships were shredded. Kellen's people fought like demons, but even their alien skill faltered under the sheer tide of fire. The fortress loomed closer, its cannons charging with the heat of stolen. Sun's dot, then came the betrayal of fate. Kellen's fighter wing was flanked. Empire cruisers closed in, nets of energy ensnaring his craft. His voice crackled through the calm, steady but grim. Elias, go on without me. Elias's blood turned to ice. What the hell are you saying? Kalen, break free. I cannot. Their trap is set. If you turn back, the fleet will fall. If you press forward, you may yet end this. Static filled the channel as Kellen's ship was pulled toward the fortress, swallowed by its black spires. No! Elias roared, slamming his fists against the console. Not like this. The comm went silent. On the command deck, the generals stared at Elias. What do we do, Commander? One whispered. Press the attack or turn back to save him? Elias's heart pounded. His best friend, his brother, the only being who had stood beside him when the world abandoned him, gone. Unless he risked everything. His voice trembled, but his eyes burned. We go on. And when we break that fortress, we take him back. But the choice had cost them. The fleet was bleeding, ships torn apart by the relentless storm of fire. A fortress loomed larger, its cannons glowing like a sun about to be born. The Oblivion. Engine was nearly complete, and Earth's last hope was already in chains. Asterisk humanity's ultimatum. The void burned with wreckage. Human ships drifted in pieces, alien hulls cracked open, pilots gone silent in the dark. The fleet was dying, but not broken. Elias gripped the railing of the command deck, knuckles white. His heart still raged with Kellen's capture, but he refused to let grief smother him. Not yet, not until Earth itself was safe. The fortress loomed ahead, black spires glowing with stolen starlight. The Oblivion engine pulsed at its core, alive with power that could erase worlds. A general staggered to Elias's side, his uniform scorched. Commander, our lines are collapsing. If we don't fall back, we lose everything. Elias turned, his face carved from stone. If we fall back, Earth is gone anyway. There's no running from a star killer. The general swallowed hard, then whispered, Then what's the plan? Elias stared into the abyss. And then it came to him not hope, but defiance. 2 strikes. One to rescue Kalen. One to destroy. That engine. The bridge crew fell silent. That's suicide, someone muttered. Elias bared his teeth. Everything we've done has been suicide. But if we hit them hard enough, if we hit them human, maybe we buy a future. The orders went out. Asterisk half the fleet turned toward the fortress's lower spires, where Kalen was held. The other half prepared a direct assault on the engine's core. Pilots tightened their harnesses. Soldiers whispered last prayers. And across the galaxy, on channels the Empire could not silence, Elias's voice spread like wildfire. This is Commander Elias Vey of Earth. To every world listening, hear me now. The Empire calls us vermin. They say we are livestock. They demand our children, our future, our souls. But I tell you this, humanity will never kneel. If you strike us, we strike back. If you burn us, we burn brighter. If you erase us, our memory will haunt your every star. We are not prey. We are not slaves. We are human. And if you want this world, you will choke on its fire. The words roared across every calm. The galaxy trembled. Even the Empire's commanders felt a flicker of unease. And then the battle began again. Asterisk, the strike teams dove into the fortress's spires. Human soldiers breached halls with plasma cutters, fighting through black corridors swarming with Empire drones. Every hallway was a slaughterhouse. Smoke and screams filled the air, but they pushed on, step by bloody step. Elias himself led the charge for Kalen. Rifle in hand, he tore through metallic halls. His squad dwindling with every blast dot at last, they found him Kalen, chained within. A chamber of glowing restraints, his silver skin burned by energy fields. Elias staggered forward. I told you I'd take you back. Kalen lifted his head weakly, a shadow of a smile breaking through the pain. And I told you, humans were mad. Elias shot the restraints apart. Kalen fell into his arms, weak but alive. But alarm screamed. The fortress itself was waking out. Meanwhile, the second strike hit the engine. Human ships dived into impossible fire, weaving through storms of plasma. They tore open vents, hurled bombs into conduits, rammed their dying hulls into shields until the black metal cracked. Asterisk, the Oblivion engine began to shake. Its power surged, unstable, burning hotter than the star it fed on. On every scanner, one truth appeared. It was going to detonate. Elias and Kalen staggered back to the hangar as the fortress shook. Soldiers dragged the wounded. Pilots screamed for clearance. Comms filled with static and fire. Kalen gripped Elias's arm, his strength returning in flashes. If it explodes, both fleets die. Yours, mine, there's everyone. Asterisk, Elias cursed. Under his breath. Can we shut it down? Kalen shook his head. Not anymore. The best we can do is force it to collapse inward, seal the blast before it spreads. How? Kellen's eyes darkened. From inside. Asterisk, Elias stared at him, realization hitting like a blade. No, don't you dare. Kellen's voice was steady, quiet. This is what my people should have done long ago. My life for your world. My sacrifice for your children. Humanity must survive. Elias's chest burned with rage. I didn't fight this war to lose you, damn it. There has to be another way. But even as he shouted, he knew Kalen was right. The Oblivion engine pulsed harder, cracks of white light tearing through its spires. If it blew, Earth would be ash, deflate nothing but memory. Kalen placed his hand on Elias's shoulder, his eyes softer now. You taught me what it means to stand when there is no hope. Let me give that back to you. The fortress groaned. The engine screamed, and Elias had to decide. Asterisk trembling through the stars. The fortress screamed as if alive. Black walls cracked and split, white fire bleeding through them. The Oblivion engine pulsed like the heart of a dying god, each beat threatening to tear the galaxy open. On the command deck of the surviving fleet, officers shouted, panicked, begging for orders. But all voices faded when Elias's transmission cut through. This is Commander Elias Vey. The engine is going critical. If it detonates, every ship, every world within light years is gone. We have one chance won. The bridge fell silent. Elias's voice trembled, raw and broken. My friend. Kalen. He's going inside. He can seal the blast. But it means he won't come back. The silence deepened. Even among soldiers hardened by endless war, there were tears. Kellen's voice then joined the channel, calm as still water. I was born to serve an empire that knew only chains. But I choose to die for a people who chose freedom. Humanity, do not forget this moment. Do not let my death be wasted. Show them why you were never prey. In the hangar, Elias gripped Kellen's arm one. Last time, his throat was too tight for words. Kalen leaned close, whispering, "Live for me. Live for all of them." Then, with a final glance half smile, half sorrow, Kalen walked into the white fire. The Oblivion engine devoured him. Sensors screamed. Power surged. The fortress cracked apart, shards of black steel flying into the void. The engine flared, expanding like a star, but then, impossibly, the light folded in on itself. A tremor rolled through the cosmos. The fire condensed, collapsed, sealed into silence. The fortress was gone. The Empire's weapon destroyed. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then across every human ship, every com channel, a whisper spread. He did it. The whisper became a roar. Kalen, humanity stands. Earth lives. The cheer shook the fleets. And in that single heartbeat, the Empire faltered. In the Empire's own capital, in the halls of their Empress, the transmission replayed Kellen's final words, echoing across the proud world. Soldiers who had crushed 1,000 rebellions felt doubt gnaw at their bones. And beyond Earth, on worlds long enslaved, Kellen's sacrifice became fire. The galaxy had seen something the Empire could not erase. A human ultimatum. Not shouted from warships, not carved by weapons, but spoken through sacrifice. On the deck of his battered ship, Elias sank to his knees. His crew watched, silent. The man who had defied an empire, the man who had lost his brother in arms, wept openly. Then, slowly, he rose. His voice cracked, but carried across the fleet. Transmit this message. Everywhere. To every world the Empire still holds. To every free colony. To every star system that can hear. The Empire came for Earth. They tried to break us. They tried to erase us. But hear this. His voice grew like thunder, fierce and unstoppable. If you come for our children, if you come for our homes, if you come for our future, then you will choke on our defiance. This is humanity's ultimatum. We do not kneel. We do not yield. We do not forgive. The galaxy listened, and the stars trembled. Epilogue years later, on a quiet hill on Earth, a monument stood. 2 figures carved in stone, one human, one alien. Shoulder to shoulder, looking toward the sky. Children played beneath it, laughing in the light of a sun still burning. A world still alive. And on its base, in simple words etched deep, he gave everything so we could stand. We stand still.